So hi, welcome back. This is Chapter 7, the post-war era, so right after World War II. And big band is still fairly popular, but it's starting to be taken over by other things for various reasons, which are kind of important. But in this chapter, in the first slide that I'm looking at, it's talking about the top 40 programming, which is coming out of the hit parade and basically is just DJs putting songs on the radio and letting people know these are the most popular songs. This leads to a thing called the payola scandal, which is on your notes. It's a huge thing. Many musicians complained about this, and it's basically DJs taking bribes to put songs on the radio just to get them popular for big companies. It's a huge thing. Please read about it. It's one of the more important things in America. They've even made a lot of movies about it. There's a section about the technology of this time. Les Paul, the guitarist that some of you may know about, actually was an incredible genius when it came to technology and developed a lot of things, including the use of magnetic tape, cassettes and 8-tracks and whatnot for you older folks out there. But it's an advent of switching radio from AM to FM slowly. Believe it or not, TV is on the rise. It's still a fairly new invention. So all these things, it's really kind of a fascinating thing if you're interested in that kind of stuff in the chapter. And there are a couple of questions, especially about magnetic tape. It was also the rise of the big singer, and I talk about the big singers because in the big band era, it was mostly instruments, but almost every big band had just a singer just to do a verse or two. But later on, after big band declined, the singers in the group became more popular and had solo careers. And these include people like Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby and Nat King Cole. And you should read about them and listen to their music too. There were a lot of reasons why the big band genre died out. One reason people just get bored and want to hear new kinds of things. But there were a lot of issues too, and you should read about that. But it included effects from the war, including the fact that war rationing, petroleum products, gas products, all of those kinds of things were rationed, which made not only just producing records hard, but even just putting gas in your car to go from city to city was a problem. There was a giant union strike that goes into detail about that caused problem, and even something as odd as radio wartime restrictions, like you couldn't just broadcast anything on the radio because we were at war. So there were a lot of reasons, but big band does decline at this time, and some newer type music start coming up, including a thing called urban folk music. Take a look at that. Early musicians included Pete Seeger and the Weavers, Peter, Paul, and Mary. And it's just basically this nice folk music that later on becomes a little bit more grungy, if you will, and it actually starts become one of the ingredients for later on rock and roll. The new Latin thing is the mambo craze. I've got some listening about mambo music, so do that. Southern music changes, and we start labeling things completely different. Country music actually used to be called hillbilly, and in this time period it is now starting to be called country and western. Race records, which you probably read about, is now is going to be put into a different category called R&B, rhythm and blues, and it has actually a lot of subcategories. R&B actually consisted of a lot of different styles. It had jump bands, which were like little tiny big bands, just 4 or 5 people, and also look almost like a rock and roll band. But that R&B also included Tin Pan Alley love songs, the urban blues, and gospel harmony groups. It was kind of a catch-all phrase, kind of like alternative is now. And so you kind of want to look at that. Important people in this chapter are Louis Jordan and Charles Brown, and just the whole idea of the jump band and the blues crooner things. It's more specific. There was a style of music called the Chicago Electric Blues. The book goes into a lot about the character Muddy Waters, and you should read about him a little bit. Again, some listening with that. Other famous R&B people of this early time are the Dominoes, Ruth Brown and Big Mama Thornton. Both those ladies, Ruth Brown and Big Mama Thornton, are a lot of fun. Read about their lives, just some short chapters, take some notes, and again, listen to the music because I like to ask questions about the music. As far as country and western, the epicenters of this, of course, is still Nashville, Tennessee, and but also Southern California, and this has to do with the Oklahoma Dust Bowl, basically, and a lot of people from Oklahoma moving to Southern California and taking their music with them. It's an interesting section of the book. I put a big exclamation point next to Patty Page. Read about her, Oklahoma native, and how extremely popular she was in this time. Most of you probably never heard of her, but you probably have heard her songs on TV shows or movies because they keep using them all. And we have all these subgenres that you see in those notes. Country crooners like Eddie Arnold, bluegrass musicians. Bluegrass as a whole, totally different thing. Read about the definition of what bluegrass is, but listen to it, and then you'll know, oh, that's bluegrass. Bill Monroe is the leader of that. And then you have this more general section about honky-tonk music, which is basically bar music. That's an oversimplification. You should read about that. But it includes people like Ernest Tubb, Hank Williams Sr., probably the most famous honky-tonk singer, though he's lumped in with a lot of different styles also. And that would be Chapter 7. And that seems kind of short, but they're huge chapters, and there's a lot of information and a lot of different kind of listening. So please make sure to read that book and take a look at that stuff. Thank you.